Hey fam, what's up? I'm about to go live. Stand by. What's up, fam? I see you. Oh yeah, we gonna get in. Just a second. I gotta intro the show. Oh. They hear me doing my technical work. Hi, y'all. I'm talking to Twitter Space. Give me a second to start this little brief commercial. Come on in. Come on in. Okay, what's going on? Hold on, y'all.
Nirvana was
Nirvana. I'd like to speak.
Go ahead,
Ms. Nirvana. Thank you. I've shared with you in the past that the 2016 Color of Wealth LA report shows the median value of African Blacks' liquidity was $60,000 compared to U.S. Black $200. In that same report, the median value of their total assets is $152K, U.S. Black $30K, white $350K, Asian Indian $460K, and Japanese $595K. And it wasn't because we weren't educated. In the same report, U.S. Blacks were 44% degree with a median income of $53,500. African Black, 58.9% degree, median income of $115,000. And although Mexicans were 17.8% degree, their median income was within $3,500 of U.S. Black at $50K. Today, our median income in LA is $35K, and the median home price is $834,400. This was 8 years ago, pre-pandemic. Just imagine how much more egregious the racial wealth gap is for freedmen whose ancestors built the wealth all of these groups from with their lives. The data is clear. Our never-ending Holocaust has been weaponized against us to enrich whites and immigrants with never-ending policies by our government at every branch, which ensure freedmen are the permanent bottom caste, which begs the question, how many more freedmen have to be legislated out of California before seeing a dime of whatever becomes of this study? Chemerinsky made it clear that it's time to untether black immigrants from our reparative justice claim, because if you attempt to enrich them some more with our reparations, it will be race-based, not lineage. And how's that working for freedmen farmers who are at risk of being foreclosed on because whites and Latinos have filed a class action lawsuit on the grounds of reverse discrimination after $4 billion was set aside for their debt relief, which includes immigrants, our albatross. In effect, Narcan and Cobra, you are setting freedmen up to fail at ever receiving reparations at the state and federal level when you insist to be for all blacks when freedmen are the black immigrants' reparations per the data. You're seeking a white wealth transfer, which keeps us tethered to the bottom as anchor of this country's capitalism, knowing full well we weren't entitled to CARICOM nor any repair from African colonizers. Even President Chemerinsky's testimony is Secretary of State Dr. Shirley Weber's definitive intent on eligibility of the AB 3121 bill author, that it is specifically for black American descendants of U.S. chattel slavery, lest we end up with 50 cents. The fact that this is even still open for debate is yet another assault of exponential proportion on freedmen. In closing, esteemed task force, in the words of Spike Lee, freedmen need you to do the right thing. I'll land there.
Thank you, Mrs. Nirvana, for your comments this morning.
Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the mountain. Good evening in the central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Reparationist perspective, bringing you those freedmen hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our vote and socializing our suffering. How y'all doing, family? It's been a minute. Yes, I'm back and forth between coming to you live and doing advocacy work behind the scenes. So on the rare occasion, I have to step aside from this work to go and focus on the other. I see you, Black Magic. I see you, The Rock. Welcome Facebook, welcome ScrewTube, welcome Twitter, and welcome Twitter Space. I see each and every one of you, and I'm so grateful and thankful to have you here in this space with me tonight. It's going to be lit. We've got some esteemed guests here, family, that's going to break it all the way down about delineation, race, and ethnicity, and why it matters, why we must unflatten Blackness, why we must get away from the POC, the minority, and all these other things that mask the failure of our government at every branch wherein American freedmen are concerned. We descend from those ancestors whose chattel slavery built the wealth each and every one of these groups eat from. And that was what my intro was about, because for some reason, I can't find my customary intro and outro. So I found that little gem and I thought, well, how befitting for tonight's topic was to open with that. So I want to see here. Okay, I see you, baby. I see you with your hand raised already. She's ready to speak. Who is this? WP. Oh, he. WPR or anti-black. Who is this?
This is DJ.
Oh my God. Hi, DJ. Hi, DJ. I see that I found you again. Well, stand down for a few because I've got some guests here from the East Coast that need to weigh in before the clock strikes midnight. Did you have something to share?
I just wanted to say good luck. I gotta go with a group starter, but I'm gonna come back to you, okay?
All right, great. Thank you so much. So without further ado, family, let me introduce my illustrious guest. Tansy, oh, you put in a request. Let me bring you up, babe. Hold on one second. Let me approve you. So we've got Tansy and a son from the Capital Accountability Project out of the DMV. Let me change the Bluetooth so my Twitter space and my ScrewTube and Racebook can hear you guys loud and clear. Stand by. Let me change it off of this. Hold on, fam. I have to end the Bluetooth off of this. I think that's why it was a little glitchy, because I'm streaming live as well in Twitter space. And that intro was a little glitchy. Let me put the Bluetooth on the speaker so you guys over on the live stream can actually hear what's going on. Hold on one second. Okay, I think we're good to go. Hi, Dominique Henderson. I see you, family. Of course, the echo messed up the ability to understand what was being said. How frustrating. I'm so sorry. I may have to get an edit going to clean that up, family. I'm trying to make sure Twitter Space can hear and everybody can hear. So right now, I've got them on the Bluetooth speaker. Hold on one second. Oh, my goodness. Is that Dawn from CBAC, y'all? Concerned Black American Citizens is in the building. These three dynamos, okay, are going to help me to unpack race and ethnicity this afternoon. And we've got an action item for you, family. So please, please, please put on your listening ears. Please take out your pens and your papers. You're going to need to take notes because they're about to drop all that knowledge and all that fire. So without further ado, let me introduce my esteemed guest here in Twitter Space, Asun and Tansy from CAP, and Dawn from CBAC. Welcome, ladies. How y'all doing? Oh, my goodness. Don't tell me it's not on my darn Bluetooth. Hold on one second, y'all. I thought I had you on the Bluetooth speaker. Just a second. That's too low. Hold on. I'm trying again. It's so low. It's crazy. Hold on. Let me try it one more time. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Say something, y'all. You can hear me good, but we can't hear you good. Oh, my God. This is the worst. It's not transferring to the Bluetooth, unfortunately. I don't understand why. I turned it off on my laptop. And now, well, let's just try it and see. I don't know what's going on. Let me see if I can close down everything else over here to see if that will do it. Testing, testing. Asun, talk to me.
We can hear you pretty good over here.
Wonderful. What
we're
happened?
Good on Twitter.
Okay, we're good over here now. Thank you so very much. Okay, thank you so much for joining the live, sis. And I want each of you to answer these questions I want you guys to work together to answer these questions for my illustrious audience viewing all over the world. I want to go through my line of questioning about race and ethnicity and why we must delineate with my illustrious audience before we give them the action items. Is that okay?
That's good with me.
All right.
I say let's just start with Dawn.
Let's start with Dawn. Okay, DP.
That's right.
Okay, so the first question, without further ado, I wanted to ask, what is race and what is ethnicity? Can you please share with my audience?
Wow, those are deep questions. Race is a social construct. And ethnicity is a combination of culture, language, belief, shared experiences. And it can be a place where you're from as well, that a group of people share.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
And I would agree with what I agree with what Dawn just said. Is absolutely a social construct, and I think it's something that here in the United States we know that that's primarily where it started, and that they relate race to color, right? That colorism of black and whiteness, and they pretend like there are multiple races. For most of us, we understand there's one race, the human race, and then there are ethnic groups within the human race. But because America uses race as a caste system, because it is a construct that solidifies and locks in their caste system, is why we now are forced to really deal with this matter of race.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm gonna read y'all what Webster says race and ethnicity is. Race refers to the concept of dividing people into groups on the basis of various sets of physical characteristics and the process of abstracting social meaning to those groups. And ethnicity describes the culture of people in a given geographic region, including their language, heritage, religion, and customs. So race and ethnicity are distinctly two different things. But as Hassan said, in America, race is considered how we classify different people by color. And, there really isn't a real ethnic following for basic, I won't say basic, but for what people traditionally consider Americans. We don't break ourselves up into ethnic groups here, not by name, but for Black people, it's just been our color, our culture, our way of life, how we did things were all around an unspoken code of being Black. And so American society and dominant society as a whole decided, well, that's how they was going to separate people by color. And race was going to be our race. Black was going to be our race. And Black was going to be our culture. And Black is our ethnicity. And Black is everything about us. So, but that's the official reasoning, the official definitions of race and ethnicity.
I thank you.
So when we look at,
go ahead, Hassan.
I was going to say, so when we look at the construct of race here in the United States, it's easy to see what their intent was. It wasn't by accident that they related us to Blackness and them to whiteness, because it's all built around the power structure here. Anyone can become white that they determine they want to give whiteness to, which then basically gives them power over us. So it's not really about the color, it's about power when it comes to this racial construct here in the United States.
Yes, and my next question would be, how has America weaponized race against American freedmen to keep us tethered to the bottom as the anchor of this country's capitalism?
Well, you almost answered the question. It has used race as a way to anchor us to the bottom. And that's because policies have changed. And I want to say shout out to Woney and Brooke and Native Son, Phoenix, everybody in the audience here on Twitter Spaces. But I wanted to see if you could bring Woney up, because this is definitely her wheelhouse from the perspective of unflattening Blackness. And she brings a little flavor. I think your audience will enjoy. But one of the reasons why race is such a big issue right now, in addition to the other things we'll talk about, is the fact that we have so much immigration at this stage, and immigration among the African nations and Caribbean nations, and those groups are at odds with us in terms of, I'll just say it, competition for resources. And we have observed behaviors that are not necessarily brotherly or pan-Africanly or conducive to our community. And so we find that we are at a point where it is important to delineate. And that's what we mean by hashtag race is flat black, ethnicity is specificity. We'll get to that, but we're here to unflatten Blackness. We're here to talk about why that is important for people who don't have this conversation every day, like many of the people in the audience here. But we have to uncouple ourselves from the immigrant Black groups in order to more effectively solve our problems. I'll stop there.
Asana or Tansy, did you want to weigh in on how it benefits government to flatten Blackness and how that's working against us?
So what I would say to that is pretty much the same thing that Dawn was speaking on, and that is that without us being disaggregated, we don't get direct resources, and so we get pinned with, basically, we are America's toilet. We are the ones that, we're the most criminalized people, right? We are the criminals. Everything negative about Blackness is who we are. And you would think, because they've painted us to be lazy and poor and this, that, and the third, that we should have oodles of resources to our communities, such like how they're doing all these immigrant populations that are coming in here who supposedly need resources, right? Since they're able to identify that they need resources based on their specific needs and their disparities and hardships, well, then certainly we should have been at the front of the line, right?
Yes.
Well, that's what you would reason it to be. Instead, the government purposely lumped us all together to then say, this is the group that we're not going to help. And what we'll do is we will paint the picture of, or we will litigate it and make sure that it's in our Constitution and make sure that the Supreme Court stands on it, that we will not look at anything that's quote unquote race-based. That way we can continue to deny them all the resources they need, because they are our toilet, right?
I think I can put that in maybe a little more layman's terms, in terms of how race is weaponized against us in business, in affirmative action programs in general. So the creation of the terms minority and socially disadvantaged are, of course, raceless terms. And within those groups, several different types of people can exist. Us, along with people of color, which is essentially a code word for immigrant, legal or illegal. So essentially, counties, states, corporations have this, legacy desire to at least have 10% of their workforce, 10% of the business that the state does with quote unquote minority business, minority students, minority employees. but now we've got more terms like socially disadvantaged, historically underutilized, minority, women, business owned. And the way we are bottom casted because of race is because the laws changed and said, well, all of these programs, this aspirational 10% that was originally established back in the day for American Negroes, now is for all of these quote unquote disadvantaged groups. So, what corporations, what government entities are able to do is they're able to check a box, a nice umbrella box, and but when we look below the hood of the car, when we lift up the hood, we see that white women who are considered minorities, Hispanics who are considered minorities or historically, or I should say, they tend to fall under socially disadvantaged, are getting the bulk of the either business, matriculation, et cetera, the bulk of the resources, because that category, that class provides a cover, and it allows the natural racism that is a legacy of slavery in this country to be played out. And if we harken back to the hiring line, all of those ways with primarily ethnic networking are at play, and that's why we're not, that's how that's what we mean by being bottom casted. We're in these programs, we're qualified, and yet we're not getting the business, or we're not getting into these schools at the rate that we should, or we're not getting the loans, etc. But then when you go to hold these entities accountable, they can say, well, hey, we did our 10% with minorities, and everybody didn't really get a lot. But again, looking closer, you'll see, well, okay, everybody didn't get a lot, but how come white women and immigrants still within this program, within this pie, still got multiples more than Black Americans? So that's how race is used against us. That's how it's been weaponized against us. And I think that, yeah, that's a good explanation.
Well, so in effect, just confirm what I'm hearing is that, and I see you, Phoenix Star, I see you, Professor Smiles. We're definitely going to get to you. But let me get a little bit more from my guests. Keep your hands there so I can get to you. Don't lose your thought. Keep your pen and paper nearby. What I'm hearing is that race is being weaponized against us and entitling all these other groups. What I'm also hearing that you did not necessarily say is that these immigrants are able to play both sides. They can play the people of color to get the affirmative action due to us, to get the civil rights due to us, so that, like you said, Dawn, that the 10% of what was allocated to us on the premise of race will be all absorbed, akin to what's happening with the HBCUs and how they're now having to bring in DACA recipients and Hispanics. They got to have a certain number of Hispanics on in their school enrollment before they can get federal dollars. They literally got it so that we're fighting over race. So what the government has managed to do is they create the social construct called race and then lock us out of being able to weaponize it against them for racism. Am I hearing that right?
Well, you make a great point, and so let me put a sharper point on that if I can, which is what you're saying is that race has been weaponized against us such that all the vestiges of it can be exploited by people of color, yet they are able to access policy through their class as immigrants and as an ethnicity called Hispanic or Latina. So they are literally because we have been locked into race, they are literally able to, through the use of their class status, able to use the very Reconstruction Acts, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment against us. So when the black farmers, the LGBT, socially disadvantaged, everybody went to get their cut for the farm bill, who did they zero in on? Black farmers. They zeroed in on black farmers.
And let me just piggyback on that, Dawn, for a second, just to help people to really visualize how they're able to use, as Dawn said, the Reconstruction amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th against us, because they're able to access this class as immigrants. So here in the state of Maryland, we were doing some research. We started researching our legislative Black caucus here to find out that one of our caucus members, who is an American freedman, put forth legislation to basically stop Black immigrants from being able to be a part of the Black caucus, the legislative Black caucus here, and be a part of their Hispanic caucus or whatever other caucus they wanted to be a part of, because it was making the vote, it was swaying the vote in the way that the immigrants wanted it to go. Now, the argument was they were able to cast a vote in behalf of the Black caucus, and then they would go over and they would cast a vote in the Hispanic caucus, for instance, because they were Black, but they were Black immigrant Hispanic. When this was put forth, they came in so hard under attack when it came to this piece of legislation and this particular delegate, that it never even got out of their deliberations before they all changed their mind and went with them. So at the end of the day, what's happening is, what we're seeing is how they're able to not only tip the scales as far as accessing benefits that were supposed to be for us through quote unquote Blackness, but they're also tipping the scales legislatively, because they're actually able to cast in both of these spaces in these caucuses, because they're able to access both. Whereas with us, we're only able to access quote unquote the Black caucus. Now imagine if we could leverage the American Freedmen Caucus and the Black caucus, then we would garner more power within our legislative processes.
That's very, very powerful. Can you expound on that? Are we moving, are we marching towards an American Freedmen Caucus?
I don't think we're close to it, but yeah, that is the future. I mean, any caucus where, any group where there's four or more, I would see I envision, for instance, my North Carolina Black Legislative Caucus activating them. So maybe we can create freedmen caucuses in our own states. That's a goal.
I think that would be a better strategy.
Not so much.
Not so much in Congress, but what I would say is we already have seen this within our history of being here in America. The two-party system is very, very strong, right? And it's almost impossible to break it. And even if we decided to really legitimize and make a Freedmen's Party where we were able to get on these ballots and what have you, how much power would we really have? If we look at it again and we start to say to ourselves, okay, how do we garner this power yet again with the existing, system that we're already in? It would make more sense then to create the American Freedmen Caucus within the already existing system, because all you need is just four. So it would be a strategy that we should be evaluating, talking about as we begin to gather our candidates that we are vetting, that are running in your localities, in your states.
But we don't want to get too deep into that.
We don't want to veer off of the conversation. So let me leave it there. And I see Phoenix's hand.
Okay, I wanted to get a little bit more into our exchange before I take questions and comments. Phoenix hang out. Don't forget your question. I wanted to ask you, because we're at this juncture where we're talking about delineation, and we are raising this issue of delineation so that the government at every branch can see the failure it's been masking by weaponizing race against us. Can you speak to how other groups have an ethnicity and American freedmen don't, and why that's important?
Are you speaking to me? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Angela, do you mind if Phoenix speaks, or do you want one of us to speak to it?
Oh, go. Yeah, I want to get you guys in the foundation of the broadcast out the way before I start taking hands and questions and comments. So I do want to get
okay.
through.
Well, let me go ahead and just knock that question out. So, you said, why don't we have an ethnicity, or how does that hurt us?
Yeah, I pretty much asked both. That a lot of these groups have an ethnicity, and I'm saying that I want to know how it hurts American freedmen to not have an ethnicity, and how can it help once we establish an ethnicity of American freedmen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we pointed out how it hurts us. It hurts us because the laws have been changed to prevent any kind of policy from being written specifically for any particular group. Laws have even been changed here recently that prevent state governments from giving individuals direct money. Everything has to go through a third party or a nonprofit. So that's also good to know. But the issue is that because we're locked into this racial category, or we have been, we really didn't have any really kind of redress way to access resources other than through discrimination cases, or making complaints with housing, et cetera, all ways that really aren't very efficient. And what we need is something bigger, because obviously, as descendants of emancipated people here in the United States, we are dealing with the very real lineage wealth gap. And how do we close that? How do we address those disparities when we're faced with a system that has set up affirmative action that punishes us in a system that was originally set up for us? So we see Hispanics, we see all these other groups receiving money, and the thing that has finally been brought to light is the fact that they share a class, a common theme. It's an experience, or it's a designation. But what they don't have is a racial classification. And by not having a racial classification, by the implication that multiple types of people are in a beneficiary group, therefore protects it from Supreme Court challenge, let's say. That's why the LGBTQ can have a group. That's why socially disadvantaged can be a group. That's why gender is now a group. But ethnicity is specificity. Ethnicity is specificity. Ethnicity means policy specific to us. Race is flat black. Not only flat black, but flattened black to the bottom. So race is flat black, and ethnicity is specificity. It's the only way that we can access policy, and that is to come up with a way to identify ourselves such that we can skirt any kind of, challenges in court from and being accused of writing policies based on race. So that definition that we have come up with, and it has been, I would say, pretty well vetted. WONI has done polls. Many different people have done polls, but the ethnicity that we want to offer to the community obviously is American freedmen. You know, we strongly believe that that is a solid way for us to accurately describe our lineage, and all that entails, by marrying our nationality, American, um, establishing that we are originated here in this country, that we are of combined ethnicities that were created, you know, once the first act of exogamy, which is forced exogamy, forced pregnancy occurred, and a new DNA profile was created here in America. And it doesn't matter at what point in time, because we know it as of 1870, we converged. We're many threads, and I think American Freedmen is a solid moniker for us, and that's what we want to talk about. Ethnicity is specificity, and we think we can get policy with that.
I am super ecstatic to hear that explanation. It puts the Black farmers on my mind. They were fighting based on race, and I wish that they had the privilege of sitting with you, Hassan, Tansy, and those of us in the contemporary grassroots reparations movement, because there was and some of you, my viewers, know this already. It may be a little repetitive, but bear with me for those who are newly watching. But of the 9.2 billion that was set aside as a part of the COVID debt relief for the farmers, this is how much they hate American freedmen. Let me break the numbers down for you. Hi, Ivy Dreams. I see you, Gwen XOXO. I'll be over to chat with you guys in momentarily, okay? But I see you. I'm just in a flow. Y'all know how it is, okay? But of that 9.2 billion that was set aside, white farmers were to receive, I want to say off the dome, $6.7 billion. Latino farmers were supposed to receive $100 million. Asian farmers were to receive $17.6 million. And American freedmen farmers were receiving a paltry $15 million. And this is what happens, family. I mean, this was before white folks and immigrants alike appealed to the Supreme Court that you can't give COVID debt relief to farmers based on race, even though white farmers were getting the lion's share. And so go ahead.
I wanted to make the distinction too, is that because you know how white people still being accusing us of, if we come out with or push American freedmen, which we will, and that will become our ethnic designation, and accuse that group of being a race-based group. And that's why language is so important, and the wording. So I just want to read real quick again and why it's worded like this, because the thing that we don't want to do is in the bid to create an ethnic designation that will unflatten blackness, we can't conflate race and ethnicity. So here is the definition. Persons, American freedmen, persons originating from combined ethnicities within what is now the United States of America prior to 1865, and are descended from persons emancipated nationally by the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Now, this is what you call the short version. It's called the minimal definition. Now, of course, a more complete definition for different formats, but at the core, it is very intentional that I think captures all of us, tri-ethnic, the fact that we originated here, the fact that we don't mention slavery, and 100 years from now, our descendants won't have an ethnic designated that says slavery anywhere in it. It speaks of freedom. It means freedom and self-determination. So yeah.
Well, like I said, family, to Dawn's point, to Asan's point, Tanzi's point, it is imperative that we start to get in line and move on the strength of our ethnicity that will be newly designated, as we're pushing to have accomplished. Because, like I said, based on those numbers, even when white folks are getting the lion's share, they're so dead set against us as a group receiving a penny of what we are long overdue that once again, they create the social construct called race, and then they weaponize it against us by locking us out of access to anything race-based, okay? So let me get to my next question. Thank you so much, Dawn, for that. What are, okay, hold on one second. Some of the ways not having delineation of race, we did that. Okay, so let's go back to race. I do know that we've been working with other grassroots movements throughout the country, and we've kind of come to a consensus about race being Black American and African American. Now, given that has flattened Blackness with Black immigrants, and that being a problem for American freedmen, why did the contemporary grassroots movement overwhelmingly choose to keep it as our race identifier?
There's more to it than that. I think, well, I'm not even going to say I think, because quite a few of us that are here that I can see were on those numerous meetings. One of the most important things that we were trying to do was to, one, preserve our history and our historic record. So as we talk about leaning in and gating up, we have to gate up around even terms that might not be so endearing to us now. It's still, as far as America goes, as far as the historical record goes, it pertains to our ancestors, and we were unwilling to let anyone else take that. So we added, instead of just saying Black American, instead of just saying Black/African American, we said Black American/African American. And then the definition, part of what we have not shared, goes into detail as to who a Black American/African American is. And that essentially would be an American freedman based on the category.
You have the definition there, Asan?
I didn't pull it up. So if you could pull it up.
Let me read the definition for that. Okay. A person starts off the same. A person originating from combined ethnicities within what is now the United States of America prior to 1865, and were previously classified as Negro, colored, Afro-American, mulatto.
And so if you understand that definition, we understand, and I can say personally for myself, I reject African American as well, not because I reject the continent of Africa or anything such like that, simply because I am an American freedman first. Okay. And because of that, we decided that it would be better that we preserve and protect our ancestors and the contributions that they've made here on this soil in the United States of America. So we surrendered African American, all of our history books right now for the better part Yes, for the better part of our history books right now, all contributions go to quote unquote African Americans. We are not willing to surrender that to any other ethnic group because of our personal feelings. We have an obligation and a responsibility to our ancestors to protect what they have invented, what they have created, and what they have built. We are not surrendering it. So we need to, again, build a bridge, get over the semantics of feelings, of how we feel, and recognize for all of us that are American freemen here, that are family members here, our ancestors have contributed so much to this country. How dare any one of us be willing to throw all that away because we have a feeling about a word? No, our ancestors deserve to always be preserved and recognized. And so we put forth for the race piece of this, Black American / African American, and we locked it up by making sure that it is clearly understood who we're talking about. Never again will we allow someone else to come in here and mask themselves as us so that they can even pretend to be one of those descendants of these great, great warriors, inventors, and creators of this nation that belongs to the American freedmen.
That was
So you might ask.
And I put the forum in the Jumbotron. Not sure if you mind, but I thought it would be a good piece for people to actually see how it actually unfolds as you go through the forum. And at the end of it, you have your summary of it all.
Okay, thank you. Angela, did you have another question for us?
I think I thought Don was trying to add another piece.
That's not the one where that's not the one that we are utilizing.
Which I can't see.
Down. It was the one that okay, fine.
Gwen, I do want to say a song. Gwen XOXO in the ScrewTube chat says, "Preach, sister, spit them words out." Okay, so you get a lot of love in the ScrewTube chat over here. I just had to add that. Go ahead, Dawn, weigh in.
I wanted to make it clear that there still is, if we were going to be talking about the census or forms, Black is still Black as it stands alone, is still there. And that definition, and this is the government definition of Black, period, a person having origin in any of the other Black racial groups of Africa. So let's say an African or a Caribbean had to check a box, they would still, be able to check a box, and maybe they'll have Jamaican and whatever under there. But people who didn't agree with American freedmen or Black American, that's what I refer to myself as, Black American. Notice we're adding American, so it's not just Black, but it's Black American / African American. So, you choose either or, and most people say the same thing. They prefer Black American, but as Hassan just laid out, all of those names belong to us, and all the accomplishments under those names belong to us. And so, therefore, that's the rationale for why we should hold on to those and keep those as ours. But other people still need to check the box, but they can still check Black, not Hispanic or Latino, which is what we've all been checking when race is flat Black. But in the unflattening of it, let's say you had a form you had to fill out, you would check Black American, and then your ethnicity would be American freedman. If you were Caribbean, you would check Black, and then you would check not Hispanic, not of Hispanic or Latino origin. So that's basically how that would work, if someone were checking boxes.
Wow, that is just very, very powerful. So we can look to see changes coming to the census where we can literally be the ones who have put the gate up around Black American / African American freedmen as our ethnicity? Is that what you're saying, Dawn?
Yes. Yes. Son, you can answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that's what. So for those who are not aware, I think we've said this numerous times now, and maybe if Phoenix or Tansy or Dawn can put it up in the jumbotron, that the census is allowing us to weigh in publicly. And so, yeah, you can go there and you can weigh in to make sure that we get as our ethnic group added for American freedom. Those are some of the tasks that we have to now start looking at and ensuring that we do, so that we can make sure that if someone does check off Black, that they would have to check off Black, not Black American, which is the distinguishing thing. I want to make sure that it is clear. Black American / African American is specific to the American freedmen, but someone can check off Black, period, which is the flattening. And then they would have to then check their ethnic group, their subsequent ethnic group. Or in this case, as Dawn's example went, they would check Black of non-Hispanic heritage, which clearly denotes, based on the definition that we read earlier, that they are not an American freedman. They are of what America has defined Blackness to be. Just want to make sure that was clear.
I just love it. So in effect, Kamala Harris could claim to be Black.
Right.
She could claim to be Black of East Indian Brahmin caste descent or whatever, Indian descent. Like that. And then the only ones that will be able, she couldn't call herself a Black American.
Correct.
Barack Obama couldn't call himself an African American.
Exactly.
That's fire, and that's power.
They would check Black, not of Hispanic or Latino origin.
That's
and yeah, and that part of it that Dawn is mentioning, where it says not a Hispanic or Latino origin, that doesn't come from us. That's already what America is already using. Okay, so that's not something that we're putting in there.
That's what we check now, everybody. Now they have a Black / African American. We're saying no, we are Black American / African American, and we are people who originated, combined ethnicities who originated here on this land, tying us to this land and our creation here.
And everyone else, correct. And everyone else would just be Black, and whatever their other, they would be Black, non-Hispanic, or of Latin heritage. So the key thing to zone into is we are Black American. American is the key word there. We are Black American / African American. We are doing that to preserve all the contributions under the titles that we have been forced to work under or be identified as based on America. So we're going to keep, and we're going to eventually have to be okay with the African American terminology if we don't want to turn our backs on what our ancestors have done here. So the key word to pay attention to when you're looking at the census and anything else going forward is look for Black American / African American. And then there will be another category for them to check off that says Black. And Black is the definition of what America says, which is anyone having an origin from Africa, with the exceptions of Northern Africa, is considered Black. That's everyone else except for us. We are Black American / African American.
And our ethnicity is American freedmen.
Correct.
Okay, I would love for you to there's a lot of different acronyms and nicknames, as I call them, out here circulating that people want us to identify as. And I'm not opposed to how people identify amongst the different sets they rep, because we all bleed chattel slavery, okay? But what I want you to do is to make it plain for my audience, my co-host this evening, the importance and the magic and the justice claim and the Constitution, everything tied to that label, American freedman. Can y'all please unpack that for my viewers all over the world? Why it's imperative that whatever we do on the inside of our sets that we rep, we should be collective on the American freedman when we moving on the outside and how we identify. Why that's the best route for us to go. Can you unpack that for my people?
So I'll start. What I would say is, when we look at whiteness here in America, we know that whiteness is not one ethnic group. It is a multitude of groups that have agreed to come together under this color for power, to be able to maintain the resources and the wealth of this country and keep it towards and for their own. They understand within that power of whiteness, of that race identifier, they understand that they are of different ethnic groups. They're not crazy, they're not confused. But what they stand on is, when we come out here in this political game, in these political streets, in these public streets, we are all white, because that's where our power is. So what we have to understand is, we love each and every person out here that's an ADOS, that's a descendant of the formerly enslaved, descendant of U.S. chattel slavery, FBA, B1, F1, Negro, Black. As far as when it comes to our ethnic group, we appreciate all of that. And we can be all of those when we are in our homes amongst ourselves and around our friends and so forth. Be the purple pie man if you so desire. Nobody is going to tell you you don't have a right to identify the way you feel, what fits you best. But what we are begging, what we are pleading you to understand is, when you come out in these political streets, we're going to need you to arm up, man up, woman up the way white people do. And they stand on whiteness because it gives them power. It allows them to run this country the way they see fit. We need you to come up, lean in, gate up, and recognize that American freedmen is what we are legislatively related to and identified to. That is the only thing that we can truly stand on. We don't have Negro schools and the Negro Bank. We have the Freedmen's Bank. We have the Freedmen's Schools. We have the Freedmen's Hospital. We have Field Order 15. We have been recognized. We don't need to make this fight a harder fight as we go uphill. We are already going up the freaking hill. Please don't add the snow and the ice to it. Okay?
Yeah.
We are tired of sliding back down. Okay? All we need to do is climb this freaking hill as freedmen out here in this political
word.
And everybody else, if you come to the DMV and say, hey, Hassan, I am ADOS. I'm gonna say, hey, family, you're my family and I'm your family and I'm gonna hug you. I don't care what you are, as long as you are me when it comes to coming out here in the political streets. I'm tired of sliding backwards because we're arguing over something that does not matter to the government. It only matters to your personal feelings. Okay, we need to understand, we got to remove the emotions and the personal feelings and our loyalty to other people or other ideology out here. We need to leave that alone and recognize ain't nobody trying to rebake a cake that's already cooked. I'm trying to eat the cake now. We're trying to eat the cake. The cake was baked when we were called and identified as freedmen. I'm not trying to keep climbing up. I'm halfway up this hill for somebody to come behind me with ice freezer and freeze up and make it snow for me to slide my happy freedman tail back down. I am pissed off at you. And I need you to understand, we're out here fighting every day. We don't get paid for this work. We don't sleep. We don't eat. We're out here fighting for the whole entire nation of American freedmen. Please get on the page with us. I land my plane.
Girl, I wish I could drop a firebomb on what you just shared. You're absolutely right.
Please.
I know. It was just like, that's the best I got. Dawn or Tansy, did you want to weigh in? I mean, we can pass the plate on that, you know?
I have nothing to say. She said it all right there.
Yeah, so I do hope you guys understand that American freedom is constitutional. Okay? That is who we were once we fought and won the Civil War for the Union and ergo won our emancipation. And this government has worked hard and fast to blind us by that reality so that we can forever be chasing our tail under all these other nicknames. But this is the one where you're going to get your resources, okay? American freedom is tied to your justice claim. It's tied to your employment and having that delineation. We just got that out here in California, where we've got delineation, wherein flat blackness is concerned. We done unflattened it. And now they're starting at the state level in employment and all of this. They have to redo everything they've been doing. Now that that is law, that we identify out here as African-American freedmen, something of that nature. I have to go back and see what the final verdict was, not less one of you ladies know what delineation.
I know that's not, hopefully we're going to leave that in California. I think the community took a vote.
Okay.
Everybody
well, you know.
I'm just joking, but yeah, I think Black American, we have done several polls. Different people have done polls on Black American versus African American. So you know what kind of response. Black American won. Woney was here. I wish she would have had her polls, but Black American wins hands down. People always like, well, why? And then some people are like, well, I feel comfortable. You know, we've been using that. That's why it's / instead of we have also been classified as African American, because African American, as you know, in 2016 is when Obama struck Negro from the records, and African American is what we use now in terms of you know, our new racial classifier that locks us at the bottom. So race is flat black and ethnicity is specificity.
Well,
hey, Dawn.
Oh, go ahead, Hassan.
I was going to ask Dawn to tell them why. How did Obama do us a favor? Although all of us feel some kind of way about him using the word Negro, let's enlighten them on how that worked in our favor when it comes to the American freedmen.
Yeah, I think the silver lining on that, we were all kind of pissed, but the silver lining is that he shut that down. No one else can use Negro going forward. So that put the gate up for real. And now all of us who have Negro on our birth certificate, you know, even if you can't go back to 1870, you got a birth certificate that says Negro with capital N. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting. You know, you think about it from that perspective, but it actually is kind of a good thing.
It was actually I won't say it was a blessing, but it definitely went in our favor, because what that means is no one else can ever claim Negro. And Negro is exclusive to the American freedmen. So for those who were born around 1963 or back, you should have Negro or the capital N on your birth certificate. If you were born after that, then your parents would have it on theirs. If you were born in the 80s and the 90s, then your grandparents would have it on theirs. The fact of the matter is, when we talk about how hard it is for us to trace our lineage, some of us to trace our lineage back to 1870, the reality is this. We don't have to go all the way back to 1870 because Obama ensured that no one else could use that identifier as Negro. And the only people who were allowed to use Negro were the actual American freedmen. So all you have to do now. Exactly. So you see how he simplified the process. They were intending to harm us and erase us. And yet they essentially protected us and made it easier for us as we move forward in our reparative justice claim. So in some way, thank you, Obama. You didn't screw us. You just helped us, even though it was unintentionally done.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's interesting what you say about in terms of being able to, how far back do you really need to go in terms of your paperwork? So that is very true. But let's also look at it this way, Negroes. Was capital N not the reclassification for your ass away from freedmen? Because guess what? There were freedmen hospitals, freedmen schools, freedmen this, freedmen that, freedmen ambulance service, freedmen ice cream, freedmen coffee, freedmen toilet paper. Next thing you know, we were Negroes. Isn't that interesting? And we never think about it. We always talk about how we've been reclassification, which in and of itself, in all of us, when we just are looking back and filling in the boxes and looking at that racial classification, that's your American story right there. All the reclassifications at your family, you look at your grandparents, your direct lineage, going from one decade to the next, changing race 3, 4, 5 different times. That is ethnocide right there. I mean, the reclassification back to freedmen is the direction we need to go. And embedded in that ethnicity is the legal status freedmen. So let's understand that as well. It's a American plus freedmen, nationality, plus our legal status. So if you had to go to court, or we writing policy, that word is embedded in it, and that is the key. That is what was established with the 13th Amendment. But American freedmen, it distinguishes us. We were the first freedmen, and that's where we should be alphabetically at the top.
Thank you for that. I do want to go back to what California did, although I'm in agreement with the larger collective of the contemporary reparations grassroots movement. We're not talking reparations right now. We're talking about race and ethnicity, because let's understand, family, reparations is the long game. We need immediate solutions. And the way to do that is to unflatten blackness and really make this hashtag up here in the title, ethnicity is specificity, live. So I am in accordance with my co-host that it's imperative that we get back to who we really are as American freedmen, because a lot of work has been done to mask that so we can chase our tails and never be restored and never get resources that come to us. This country has they've had a grand time flattening it under flat blackness, people of color, minorities, disadvantaged, all this kind of thing that they throw at the wall to see what sticks to keep us chasing tail. So I'm absolutely in alignment with the way the larger collective of us in the grassroots movement have decided to go on this issue, given the upcoming OMB, of which I am going to ask next. How can American freedmen and our allies support us? But let me read this, because I do like to be clear about what California has done, which I believe is still far better than flat blackness. So basically, I'm reading just a little bit. California is the first state to require its agencies to present a separate demographic category for descendants of enslaved people when collecting state employee data. According to a recently signed law, the State Controller's Office and the Department of Human Resources can start collecting this information as soon as January 1st, 2024. These demographic, categories will include African Americans who are descendants of people who were enslaved in the United States, and Black employees who are not descendants of people who were enslaved in the United States. The data collected will be included in a public state report on or after January 1st, 2025. So kudos to California. We are at least, unflattening Blackness in the way that they have done. But I absolutely love the idea of what we've come up with now on a federal level in the way in which we want to be identified as a race, and even greater still, as an ethnicity. It makes me proud to go back to our roots. It makes the ancestors proud that by race, we have not dismissed all of their accomplishments in this country before immigration was even a thing. And at the same time, we honor and acknowledge what they did to emancipate us when we go back to the beginning as American freedmen. It's just rich. Now, we've got these upcoming OMB listening sessions, and I want you guys to explain to my viewers nationwide, worldwide, what that is, why it's important that we show up in large numbers to support presenters like you, Dawn, like you, Tansy, like you, Asan. Why is it important that we get support in our listening sessions behind what we've decided to do on the issue of race and ethnicity? And then I want you to tell them how they can help you in these efforts on a federal scale.
Okay. Tansy, did you want to say anything? Because you've been quiet.
Tansy just along for the ride.
No, I have nothing to say. I'm listening. You guys have taken off.
Okay. So I'm gonna because with our conversation tonight, we're trying to steer away from the OMB thing. But what I will say is this: it is important that we recognize that just in general, speaking of the OMB is connected to the Chief Financial Office of the federal government, which is the office that collects this data, right, when it comes to the different ethnic groups here that determine where they're going to send out money to, or to what ethnic groups are going to receive monies. And so that's why it's so important that we are aware of what's taking place with the OMB listening sessions, because as we've already discussed, historically, we have always just been identified as a race in the United States versus an ethnic group. And so we understand, recognize the importance of being recognized as an ethnic group so that we can begin to have access to the resources that the other ethnic groups here receive. And some of them not even ethnic groups, as Dawn said earlier, LGBTQ, just under the identifier as immigrant, because that's a mixture of ethnic groups. Therefore, it's not a racial category. Therefore, they are able to allocate monies towards the needs of that specific classification under immigration or immigrants. And so that was the important piece for us to share as far as the OMB part of, was that we're encouraging everyone to understand how we're moving and why we are moving in the way that we are. Again, I would say, like to going up the hill, we could go up a hill of grass. It's still a steep hill and it's still a challenge to get there. But if you make it snow and that snow turns into ice, it's a much harder, difficult hill to climb up. Therefore, we're not trying to make this a complicated thing. We understand legislatively, freedmen is our legislative political identifier. American freedmen is our ethnic group, and our racial group, based on America's standards and their definition, except for the definition that we've now redefined, would be Black American / African American. And that is to ensure that they no longer stand in our way and say, no, you can't ask for policies specific for a racial group. You're right. We can't, based on all the stuff that we've now learned. But we now can, based on that we are an ethnic group. Now we can get the resources that we have been deprived of all of these now centuries that we've been on this land and our land.
Wonderful. So is there any action items you need of the viewers, or you just wanted to share with them the method to our goodness when it comes to how we plan to move forward on the matters of race and ethnicity? Is there any action items?
No, not for me, not at this time. I mean, I have I guess I have my guest list together for my for anything I have coming up in the near term future. You know, I think this is gonna cause some conversation. I saw a couple of ear hustlers come in and out of the room, but you know, I think that we basically discussed the addition of two new categories. We discussed the addition of a race category that would unflatten Blackness, and we discussed the addition of an ethnicity. But what is also an option is to continue to do as you have been doing. If you don't agree with the definition that we have presented for each of those, you can still continue as you have. People can still continue as they have, and they can check Black, any member of any African race, and not Hispanic or Latino. And that's what we have been selecting, and people can continue to select. But for those of us who want an ethnicity and understand the power of that to close present day disparities, and those of us who want a more accurate description of who we are that distinguishes us from others that share our phenotype, possibly, then here's a new category for those of us that agree with this. And that's what's beautiful about America is, you know, if people rally around an idea, it makes sense. We have a problem. We've long had a problem that we really couldn't figure out really how to get out of. And now we have this status, this class, this designation that is inalienable, meaning we're born into it. You can't take it. It doesn't matter if you want it or not. You are a freedman if you are connected to chattel enslavement in America. Simple as that. You just are. Let's leverage it.
So Dawn, tell them our one action item that we're releasing, which are the two hashtags. Explain the hashtags in very simplistic ways, because that's the action item to make
those simplistic. So we want to roll out these hashtags. Hashtag race is flat black and ethnicity is specificity as talking points. Actually, I knew was messing me up. It's spelled wrong. See, Black people.
That's me.
I
I was trying to change the title at the
No
last
reparations for you. You know spell it right. You know get a reparation. So
Tom.
we just wanted to way to really bang home the point that race is flat blackness, but flat black, think of it as bottom of the barrel, as in flattening us into the earth, into the ground, grinding us down. Hashtag race is flat black. So we need to unflatten it by adding America. We are flat. We are Black American. And then ethnicity is specificity. I know it's a tongue twister, but basically it's to get you to remember ethnic group equals specific policy, specific group, specific harm, specific lineage, harm base, specificity. And we cannot conflate race and ethnicity. They're two separate things. And that's why those definitions that we offered don't really speak to, race in the way that they have in the past. They speak to an ethnicity in both instances. So that's on purpose. And also the fact, the point of origin. Because what 20 million acres of land, when you think about that, and what our DNA profile, the makeup of us, and what that actually means in terms of inheritance to the land, both morally, biologically, through blood sacrifice and toil and intellectual property. We own this country. This country belongs to us, and we wanted our identifiers, our ethnicity, to reflect that history and that contribution and that debt that's owed to us.
That is so fire. It just puts on my mind a recent encounter at the Ace Hardware store. When I was, dealing with my circle of misfit toys, someone was ear hustling in the Ace Hardware, a white man in particular, was ear hustling. I call me and my four musketeers the island of the misfit toys. I think I got that from one of my misfit toys. I think that's misfit toy number 1 through 5. She know who she is. But yeah, I was in the Ace Hardware, and the white manager was overhearing my conversation, and he started talking politics with me and was mortified at my Freedmen protest voter strategy, and told me that I'm listening to too much Fox News. And when we got into a discussion about immigration, which is our most imminent threat, he mentioned he had no problem with immigration because they built this country. I was mortified. I almost picked up anything nearby and stabbed him, but I, held myself and didn't go postal on him. But when I explained to him that I'm an American freedman, descendant of U.S. chattel slavery, and we were the ones to build all the wealth his people and the immigrants eat from, he told me, no, we didn't. No, we did not. That, I'm sitting up here trying to talk about cotton being king and how our 40 acres and a mule was rescinded from us to give them 200 years of the Homestead Act, and what it did to give them 500-year head start on us, and the racial wealth gap. He was in total and complete denial, because we've got a lamestream media hell-bent on erasing us, family. They're hell-bent on erasing our contributions. They love being in denial about the wealth of this country, the infrastructure of this country being built at the expense of American freedmen, our ancestors who built the wealth that they truly eat from. If it weren't for our ancestors and the heinous chattel slavery they endured, there would be no America, because these white folks weren't lifting a freaking finger. So for him to sit up here and have been, mesmerized by the Democratic lamestream media that's corporate owned, and to be trying to tell me that immigrants built this piece, well, it was an insult of exponential proportion. And so therefore, this is what thrills me about the contemporary grassroots movement and our efforts in this direction, because they go learn today, okay? They go learn when we get this done and go back to the TR Ruth of who we really are. It's happening, family. It's happening. And like I said prior, we don't just need to look to long-term solutions. We need short-term and immediate solutions, because we are losing since the pandemic, and the racial wealth gap is becoming more egregious. Our homelessness, unemployment, and underemployment numbers are through the roof because of how this government has conveniently flattened us, like Dawn said, to the bottom, like I say, of this Titanic as the anchor of this country's capitalism. And we are rising up. And with that being said, let me go and see what my chat has to say about it. The Rock says, Angela, did I hear you right? The HBCUs have to admit a certain number of Hispanics. Yes, The Rock, you can Google this, but in effect, what the federal government has done in flattening us with POC, minority, and these are the Democrats that 86% of our electorate put into office. What they have managed to do is pit us one group against the other in a fight for federal dollars. Now, I don't care what you say about Trump, but he did not do that, okay? So, yeah, we literally have to have a certain number of Hispanics be able to attend our HBCUs in order to get federal dollars allocated. And this is, once again, why we must move as a block when it comes to race and ethnicity as defined by the contemporary grassroots movement. The majority of us, there are others that don't agree, but that's okay. This is my stream, and this is the page I'm on. This is my square. And Pi 180 says, well, why don't we just file a lawsuit for our reparations? I mentioned in the chat that Dr. Claude Anderson used his own money to file a lawsuit. And you guys can weigh in on any of this. I'm just going through the questions and comments in the thread over here on ScrewTube. But to my understanding, we have fought in the courts and filed lawsuits and have failed epically. Do any of you know why when Dr. Claude Anderson used about $500,000 of his own money to sue for reparations, why that failed? Anybody want to weigh in?
He was suing based on race.
He was suing based on race?
Yes, he was suing for Black people. And again, now that we are evolving every day, we're learning so much, so fast. We now understand how to approach things differently. Dr. Anderson, I interviewed him personally, right? What we know today, we didn't know yesterday. What we have learned just 5 minutes ago, we didn't know 5 years ago. So we have to understand, just like with California, and they have set major precedents for us to follow. And yet we're still learning from that how to even sharpen that and make it better. So as we continue to grow and evolve and learn, we will get this right. That's why we're here again tonight.
I love it. Yes, family, we are evolving, and we are the little big engine that could. Pi 180 goes, U.S. victims of state-sponsored terrorism fund 34 USC 20144. Pi 180 goes on to say deprivation of rights, section 242, title 18. Pi, we might need you to represent us.
How about this? Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
How about this? The fact is that when you do your lineage and learn your story, all of us probably have several claims embedded in our own stories. But as a collective, where you live or where you're from, I mean, that is the approach. Harms-based, state atonement, not reparations, state atonement. Putting together cases based on, like, if you're from the Devil's Punch Bowl, oh my God, the descendants, if there are any, of the Devil's Punch Bowl, that's a suit. Tulsa, I don't know what they've been doing all these years. I guess they're finally getting it right. Maybe they know they're getting closer. I don't know if they're moving as fast as we are toward what we're talking about, but that's the future. The future is multiple efforts in multiple venues. If we are going to encourage our children to go to college, it should be to go to law school and to become forensic genealogists.
I love that. I love what you just shared. Thank you, Dawn. Pi 180 goes on to say, the delineation on the census, that would be a great step forward. Agreed. I'm just reading the pertinent comments before I pray us out. Okay, the name, Pi says the name FBA and other acronyms unite us and American freedmen on the paperwork when it's time to get the bag. Maybe it can be done that way.
Word. That's the way it is, because that's why all of us rock. That's exactly what a son was saying. Yes, we're FBA, we're B1, we're Solon. The kids on TikTok got a whole nother name that you old folks over on Twitter don't know about. They call themselves Solan Nation and Solas and Solons, and it stands for Soul African American, I guess, whatever. But yeah, be all that. Be all you can be. Be an American Indian. Be be an American Indian freedman. Be whatever. Be a Gullah Geechee freedman. But when you do your paperwork, when you go outside and you check a box, you check American freedman. And then you can talk about what kind of American freedman you are, like when you get outside of the government building.
I love the analogy of a son when she talked about there's power in the way white folks moved as a collective, even though they're Jews, Hispanics, Latinas, Italians, Irish. All of these groups were made white, you see, because collectively that's where their power is. I like the way a son juxtaposed that. You can identify as ADOS, ADOX, BADOX, B1, FBA, all them things, you can rep your set. But when it comes to moving as a block in these streets, the power is in American freedmen. I love it.
Did we make it clear that the freedmen that were became freedmen because of the 13th Amendment, and that there are millions of records, congressional records, tied to freedmen, and it is only by acknowledging and claiming that legal status can we then use the protections of the rights of the Reconstruction Acts that were written for us that everyone else is using. That's the key. We can't even use our own damn rights. We're stuck over here trying to prove racism and trying to meet strict scrutiny. And how many times did they call you nigger? And did they hit you? Did they hurt you? That kind of shit. As opposed to, I pay taxes. I demand equal protection under the law. I'm a freedman, goddammit, and I demand my fair share. And I'm here to collect. That's how we going forward. Collectors. We're here to collect. We've been paying taxes for decades and decades. We subsidized, built shit with our tax dollars, built schools we couldn't even go to. And now they're opening up offices of immigration and refugees in southern towns, black towns, using black folks' tax dollars so that they can then subsidize the future of these illegal immigrants. They're turning southern towns, southern areas into sanctuary cities. They're putting all these Latinos out in the country up near you white folks. They sure are. And then they're getting access to these farm grants and shit like that. We got to move and groove. Get our shit together.
That's fire, Dawn. You're absolutely right. I've been saying for the company, I see you, fam. I'm coming to you. I've been saying for a couple of years on this broadcast that as California goes, so goes the nation. And, you know, some of my comrades in the South, like Dawn, Hassan, Tansy, I've got quite a few of my comrades that agreed. And they've been working, I mean, without rest. They have been pushing the needle to get us a gate so that we can actually realize taxation with some representation, okay? Because right now that's not happening. But as Dawn just explained, the South is going the way of California in the way that I've been screaming for a couple of years. And this is a whole separate plug, Freedman voter strategy. We need to be voting as a protest vote, okay? You don't need to be staying your ass at home because you see what's happening. You stay home, you allow immigrants who seek to replace you and Crayola white supremacists. Y'all know how I teach it over here. White supremacist oppressors is Crayola in this country. You allow them and you allow immigrants who seek to replace you to determine the fate of our line if you stay your happy ass at home, sitting up here and talk about no tangibles, no vote. If you don't bring these Democrats to their knees every election cycle, I mean, we got several election cycles to do this protest strategy. You ain't ever going to get nothing because what you've proven to them and continuing to vote blue no matter damn who to our people's peril is to show them that you're willing to give away your vote free of charge. They ain't got to give you nothing. So if you continue showing to the polls doing what we've been doing, it's a wrap for American freedmen, descendants of U.S. chattel slavery. It is a wrap for us. And so my freedmen protest voter strategy, shameless plug, is to vote closed border and reparations candidates only, party be damned, to neutralize our most imminent threat and replacement, immigration. And yeah, that's really what we have to do. We have to weaponize our vote and socialize our suffering. Okay, family? We are officially at war with our own government. And the only way to neutralize them is with the only commodity we've got left, which is the vote. You know, now lots of my comrades say on a federal level, it doesn't matter. The Electoral College got it's locked up. Listen, I get what they're telling me because corporate truly owns both sides of this same coin. But I want us to get into the practice of registering as independents and getting to these polls to vote, irrespective of whether it matters or not, whether you think it matters or not. Because I'm going to tell you right now, immigrants and white folks believe it matters. So I think we just need to stay in the practice and not go dark during the national campaigns. I think we need to keep that same energy and put some good juju around it. Prayerfully, we will prevail. But I'm telling you what ain't going to prevail Everybody who went out here and voted blue down that ticket the way we were misguided to do, myself included, voted for our replacement, because that's exactly what's happening right now. And we ushered that in because we delivered Joe Crow and Kabambi the White House. No other group did that. And so we've got to strategize that vote, and we must weaponize it akin to how this government at every branch is weaponizing American freedmen and our never-ending Holocaust against us. The company, go ahead and bless the mic before I continue with the comments.
Thank you. I mean, there's multiple strategies that we can hit at one time, when it comes to voting, but we have to understand what are we voting for? What are we dealing with currently? Like, currently we have, Gavin Newsom that wants to be president, battling that DeSantis guy. I think he's from Florida or something like that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's trying to make this bill so that when he does go for presidency, then at least he has something that's already written, established, and try to use it as like a national thing. But how are you gonna know if that's gonna work if you don't test it in the state first? You can't even do it in a single state. You're not going to be able, he's trying to wave it over people's heads all the way till 2024 when we have to decide when if we want him to be president or not. He's the only one that has reparations on the table. He's trying to secure a vote. So what we're trying to do now is trying to strategize the reparations and all these other people are saying in this room is with the things that we know that what these people want to do. What are we going to do in that time being? I was in a space earlier where these people were arguing about black people being Indians and all this other nonsense, but it doesn't apply to everybody. Not all freedmen have uh, indigenous ancestry inside of them as far as native tribes like Cherokee, Choctaw, and all the other stuff. That goes for one line that is basically these people thought that they were protecting people by making them indentured servants and stuff, but then later on they admitted that they treated them horribly and treated them like slaves and gave them citizenship. But we come from the same people gone into slavery. Some of us was enslaved by white people, and some people were enslaved by these people that called themselves Indians. But we know that they're the slave owners just pretending to be Indians and hiding underneath that identity. We have a lot of resources that we can go ahead and start with projects and stuff like that to move our people forward. I don't know if Twitter is getting the best of people's, betterness because, it feels good when you do something, people acknowledge it and stuff like that. But then, um, don't sit there and, for days and days glorifying yourself and stuff like that. We got better things that we need to be doing in these spaces rather than, glorifying people for things that they should be doing anyways, for the most part. Okay. I mean, I commend every person. I mean, if we had a system of giving people badges of honor and what's it called, the honor, just being honorable points and all that type of stuff, there'd be a whole bunch of those awards going now. But until we get to that point, I'll give you an emoji of a badge, Medal of Honor or something like that. But we really need to be using our noggins and stuff like that and let ego out of the way and do what we're supposed to do. Like when I got into reparations, I didn't even know what a freedman. I didn't even know I was the freedman. Like I didn't know anything until I started doing I said, I need to figure out who the hell I am. and I swear to God, when I started going through that thing, it was like what's that movie that had that white dude in it where he was going from like London to Italy and stuff, and it was like all these codes and messages in it. I can't
Are you talking
remember
about the
that.
Matrix? No.
No, not the
with
Matrix.
With Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
The Holy Grail.
No,
it was about that, but yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's like on the tip of my tongue. Why can't I just?
Trying to find Jesus' direct descendant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that movie.
It was what's it called? The Da Vinci Code.
There you go.
Code.
There you go.
Yeah. Like as I was like going through my lineage and stuff, it was just like that. It was like there was things that was in plain sight that if you just went and looked, it was like one treasure on another treasure on another treasure, and you're like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? And then you go out there, you run into other people. Shout out to Dane Calloway, because I was one of those conspiracy theorists at one point. I didn't know what was what. And
right.
And Dane Calloway was like, man, you need to know who you are. These black people as Indians. I was like, what?
Well,
looked up in the thing, and my great grandmother, she was Cherokee by blood, and she married a freedman. Descendants of chattel slavery and stuff like that. Now my grandmother, she don't know anything about being a slave and stuff like that, because they were relatively native to the land, and fought a whole bunch of battles and stuff like that just to keep their sovereign identity. But they're not called Cherokee. She told me that they were called Kitawa or Kituwa.
Well, what I've come to learn about the Cherokee and Seminole, and other groups too, I think Choctaw, there's quite a few different Indian groups that, and this is what I learned from Dr. Claude Anderson.
You go back to what these people did, and I'm like, wait a minute, they was involved in this and this and that and the other. Being thrown off of their lands, and some of the people, they took the money. They said, yeah, we'll go to Oklahoma, we'll take the money, and we'll go willingly. And other people, their situation was like, okay, if you're not going to take this money, then the back of this gun is going to make you move.
Well,
so they started moving those people out from the East Coast to what we call Oklahoma and Alabama, in the middle of the United States, on these reservations.
You reset the room?
Yes, okay, we can reset the room. Thank you, the company, for weighing in, but I do want to stay on topic because I've only got about 10 more minutes before I close this down.
Fought in every war, all the way from the Revolutionary War up until now. I have my brothers like flying around satellites for the insect. Like they've been in every conflict, every bit of piece of history that you can. It's so tied in, but it's like all of our stories spring this, like one bigger story of what really happened and stuff like that. But
that's true, and that
does
tie it all together. They
each individually need to, like write our story and then put them all together.
Thank you for your. You know what? But let me say this. But what his story actually does. He took a while. And we did go through Indian territory for quite a bit. But he is making the point that through those three lineages, unfortunately, there's a European as well. But those are the three ties, the three threads of DNA that created this unique ethnicity that is the freedmen, emancipated by nationally by the 13th Amendment. By that amendment, anyone who had been enslaved at any time in America was now considered a freedman, and that's how we want to go forward. And like he showed us, we all have different stories, but we can converge politically under the American freedman mantle and still hold on to each of our unique stories. So thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Very good. That was a good way to reset the room.
Thank you so much for that, Dawn. Okay, so I'm just going to, I think we can land right there because I've got a ton of comments over here that I'm just not going to be able to get to every comment. And I do want to retire us and not have this particular broadcast go over 2 hours. So I think that Dawn's final words were a great place for us to end on. Thank you guys for joining us here. I do want you to please, please, please help our hashtags, which are embedded in the title, to go viral. Hashtag race is flat black. Race is flat black. I typed it over here in the chat for you guys, and it's in the title. Hashtag ethnicity is specificity. Okay, family?
We do want to spell that correctly. I believe you have the option. Okay. There is an I.
Yes, indeed. How do I edit the title before? I mean, is there a way to do it without losing y'all?
There is, but if not, everyone just know to spell it correctly. That's all. Or you don't get your reparations check.
You're so crazy. Okay. I spelled it incorrectly there, but I think it's spelled correctly on ScrewTube. Please like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications, family, and make this video go viral. We need all hands on deck with the action item to make these hashtags go viral. I want you guys to know that my outro is messed up, so y'all gonna have to get the closing covering in prayer without my fire outro. I gotta check in with ETM Media to find out what's going on with my intro and outro. Why can't I use it? He was calling in the middle of this broadcast, so I'm gonna call him back and get that handled. But I want
here's some tut. Gug squirrel duddy bubby nun gug tut red eye bubby. Good evening, tribe.
Thank you, Dawn. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever American freedmen and its allies are, God truly is, because family, you are the face of God. Yes, you are. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. If nobody's told you today, family, know this, that I love you oh so black and I love you oh so strong. Yes, I do. And until we meet again, family, I want you to make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening and next couple of days. And until we meet again, family, I'm believing for each and every one of us a ton of peace, love, and reparations. Thank you, co-host. Good night, family. Peace. I'm out.